Hi, my name is Snow and I read 8 books in July. Since I didn't give you guys an update on what I read during the Booktubeathon and the Summer Biannual Bibliothon, I decided to include them in my July wrap-up, which I'm going to get into now. So the first book I read in July was The Girls by Emma Cline. This book takes place in the summer of 1969 and centers around our main protagonist named Evie. It switches between her as a teenager in the summer of 1969 and her as an adult reflecting back on those times. It's inspired by the Charlie Manson story and the Manson murders. I ended up giving this book a 4 out of 5 stars because I loved the way that it played around the Manson murders. It was quite similar to the original Manson story, but this gave a twist to the Manson story by revealing the thoughts about a girl who was taken into his household. This book also has LGBT representation because Evie falls in love with one of the girls, and that's the whole reason why she ended up going to this man's house. Now this next book I gave a 5 out of 5 stars, and that is Made You Up by Francesca Zappia. This has become one of my new favorites for the year. I love the mental health rep that was taking place in this book. Our teenage protagonist Alex has schizophrenia, which isn't touched upon in most mental health books. In fact, I don't think I've ever seen a book with representation for schizophrenia before. And that was just so interesting going into reading it, because all of the characters that she sees, she needs to try and prove to herself whether or not they are real. And to compensate for that, she takes pictures of everything and later on looks back at them to see if it's all real. And the story takes place when she enters a new school and meets this boy. Everyone seems to be scared of him and she can't quite figure out why. During this whole journey, nobody knows about her schizophrenia except for her family. It's something that she tries to hide from her school so that they don't think of her as an outcast. I 100% recommend Made You Up to anyone. It is an amazing read, and please go read it. Well, the next book I read for school, so I'm going to talk about it quite quickly. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars, and that is Alumni Gone by Ishmael Bey. I think that's how you pronounce his name. I'm not too sure. It's him retelling his tales from when he was a boy soldier in Sierra Leone and how he managed to escape that life and get better help. This just isn't really something I'm into, and that's why I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. It's quite devastating, obviously. It is very graphic, so if you do pick this one up, just be sure to know that it is a very graphic story. They don't mask over anything. You hear all about the deaths and the blood and the gore. It's interesting to read, but not really my taste. The next book I read was Stalking Jack the Ripper by Carrie Maniscalco. I gave this book a 4 out of 5 stars. This book takes place in Victorian London when Jack the Ripper was in his prime. Our main female protagonist wants to become a doctor, and that was not allowed for women. Women were supposed to just stay at home and keep quiet, and the men were supposed to be out doing all the work. But she's a very different girl. Audrey Rose has been hearing all this news about Jack the Ripper, and she wants to make it up to all the women who died to go out and find out who he is. So she pairs up with Thomas, one of her uncle's students who also wishes to become a doctor one day, and they take this case together. So much action in this story, and it is just an amazing read. It's very fast-paced, and there is a romance in it. It's kind of introduced later, but throughout the whole book there are hints at it, and it's just an amazing book. How many times am I going to say amazing in this? You're going to hear me say amazing a lot. I loved a lot of the books that I read this month. This is a series. There's a second book out currently. It's called Hunting Prince Dracula, and I'm not sure if there will be more than 2 books, but I definitely recommend reading this if you want to just read about a very empowering girl, and there are a lot of amazing quotes in this. Now this next book I can't talk too much about because it is the 3rd in a series, and it was also the first book I read for the Summer Biannual Bibliothon and the Booktubeathon. The rest of the books from now on I will have read within those 2 readathons. But that is Specials by Scott Westerfeld. Now I gave this book a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Basically, the main character is named Tally Youngblood, and she lives in this world where everyone starts out as ugly. And they go through this special procedure to become pretty. And the specials, which is the title of the book, are these supreme overlords of the pretties. They are the prettiest you can become. That's really all I'm going to say about these books. I mean, they're not my favorite series. If you're going into reading them, it goes Uglies, Pretties, Specials, and there's another book called Extras. I'm not sure if it's a 4th book or if it's like a prequel, but there's 4th. Specials, everyone. Now the next book that I read, 5 out of 5 stars, another favorite. I have so many favorites from this month. It's amazing. was Looking for Alaska by John Green. Now, everyone and their mother has read Looking for Alaska, and I'm one of the last people to read it, but I loved it. It's probably a lot of you who have read this book also did. But this book centers around a boy named Miles who has just gotten into this prep school, and he meets his new roommate, who they call Colonel, and a girl named Alaska. Now, Alaska is very different. She's a big mystery and nobody really knows who Alaska is. It's heartbreaking, it's beautiful, there are also a lot of good quotes, and it's just also very interesting because Miles, he loves people's last words, and he just knows all these famous people and all of their last words, and his favorite is "I go to seek the great perhaps," which is why he ends up going to this school, because he wants to find this great perhaps, and he thinks that going to this school, and possibly even his new friends, will help him find it. This book's also a new favorite. 5 out of 5 stars. You're gonna see a trend. I loved this book so much, and that is The Book Thief by Marcus Zusak. I didn't think I'd like it as much as I did, and I loved it so much. I cried probably starting halfway through the book. If you haven't seen any of my other videos, I've talked about this book kind of already. The main character is a little girl who, between the story, is 12 and 14. You kind of grow up with her and get more mature with her. And she lives in Nazi Germany during the time of World War II. She is an orphan. She has no parents, and her brother died at the beginning of this story, and she's kind of haunted by him. But luckily, she's taken in by a man and his wife, and she adores the man. Not so much the wife, but she ends up growing closer to both of them throughout the story, and it's just a beautiful coming-of-age story, would you call it that? I'm not sure, but I absolutely loved it. Oh, if you want to see, I don't write many reviews on Goodreads. If you want me to, or if I should, like, tell me. Or if you want me to make full videos on any of these books, I might. Again, tell me. I don't know what to do. I'm new to this, okay? But read this book. It's really good. The last book, the 8th book that I read in July, was All the Bright Places by Jennifer Niven. Now, this book I gave a 4.5 out of 5 stars. I loved this book too. Might be another one of my new favorites. Oh, that's a cat. We have a special guest. He just walked into my room. This is Calvin. He says hello. Do you want to talk about All the Bright Places? I can't hold it up and hold a cat. There's 2 characters, a girl named Violet and a boy named Finch, and they are brought together because they are both in a very similar situation. They both have rough lives and are drawn together on a balcony, but they end up saving each other on that rainy day, and they bond and they grow closer. It's a tale about adventure and romance and self-help, and it is a mental health book. This is definitely a very depressing book. I know I felt a lot of feels during this book. Heartbreaking, made you cry. Everyone will say that about this book. My heart throughout this whole book was just breaking, but it is a beautiful book. There are a lot of amazing quotes in this book as well. I know I saved a lot of quotes. I like quotes from books. Just an overall amazing book, and highly recommend. So those are all the books that I read in the month of July. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you go out and read some of these. See y'all next time. Bye. He says goodbye too. Goodbye. Oh, I love him so much.